Hey everybody, welcome to In Good Faith. I have to admit, my heart is pounding, my palms are sweating. We have a true, brilliant mind and gift to the world that has decided to join us. That is none other than Dr. Caroline Leaf. Dr. Leaf, we love you. My wife and I and the Smith family so admire your work and your commitment, not only to research and study, but translating these incredible concepts and complex things and making them simple and applicable, relatable. Thank you. You're heroic to us.
Oh, wow. What an introduction. I'm so honored. Well, I've been an admirer of yours for years as well. So the feeling is very mutual. So it's just really great to be chatting to you. And thank you for the honor. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being here. I personally, I have to admit, it is hard for me in this recording because throughout the next few minutes, and we're not going to try to take too much of Dr. Leaf's time, but I have personal questions I've got to ask. I want to ask about anxiety and social media and raising teenagers, amongst many other things. But can we hear, like, and this is a loaded question, but your background? How did you get into cognitive science, neuroscience? You're an author, mental health. You have become a guru for so many of us. How did that happen?
Well, I've been in the field nearly 40 years now, so it's quite a while. And I started out as a communication pathologist and clinical and research neuroscientist. And my field is psychoneurobiology. So that's a mouthful for basically explaining that I've been studying the mind-brain-body connection for years and understanding what mind is and how mind is connected to how the mind influences and drives the brain and the body. And then basically applied that initially in my initial research with people with a lot of like traumas and head injuries and neurological problems, as well as emotional traumas. I did a lot of research. I still do research. I run clinical teams and we publish and we keep on researching how we can help with mental health. But Judah, really what got me going was from a young girl, I always was interested in the mind and people, and I was going to become a neurosurgeon. And I got into medicine, and then I thought, I don't want to just be operating on, doing surgery on brains. I want to be able to understand the mind. And, so I've moved into a very unique field, and there was only a few of us that actually qualified, and there's only 60 of us in the world that qualified with this particular combination of degrees. And then I went on further to do more research. And the reason I kept on driving, because the reason I say that there was only 60 of us that qualified was because the degree was awful. It was so tiring. We worked 7 days a week that people just dropped out like flies. But I'm so, and honestly, I remember saying, I'll always encourage my kids not to do this because it's so hard. But I'm so glad that I did it because it actually taught me what I know, and it's opened the door to seeing things in a different way. So I crossed the bounds of philosophy and hardcore science and neuroscience and try and bring it all together. And it's also an idea that's a little bit ahead of its time. So there's been, challenges along the way, but still that's what it's all about. So helping people to understand their mind and how amazing what is the mind and how is the mind different from the brain? And that is a huge thing to be able to explain to people because they're not the same. But we live in a society that says that your brain drives everything. And that takes so much control away from people. It's actually scary. So that's a big part of what I try and help people with as well.
Well, I say nothing else. I want to say thank you because not only were you before your time, but as a result, as a pioneer, I know that the pathway for a pioneer can be incredibly painful and difficult because there is no clear path before you. And as a result, you're going to catch some flack. You're going to get some resistance. You're going to get some headwind. And the fact that you are who you are today is no small thing to somebody like me and a family that has drafted off of you and learned from you and gleaned from you. I know that your path has not been easy, but here you are as a really a beacon, not only of data and information research, but a beacon of application, because so much of your incredible work is hard for average normal people like me to understand, but you have an uncanny way of translating it and making it so relatable and able to assimilate in our daily life. I think that's one of your great skills.
Oh, well, you're very kind. I thank you for that. And I think, working for 25 years in clinical practice, you can't sit in front of a patient and tell them all this fancy brain science that I'm obsessed with. So I had to make it simple. And, that really has trained me to try and make, even though all my kids work for me and they often tell me, that's too complicated. We just had a meeting about an hour ago and they're saying, no, you can't say that, Mom, that's too complicated. But yeah, so I'm constantly trying to simplify the message because honestly, this is empowering. We need to understand how we as humans function and how much control we actually do have, and also understand how much control we don't have. And I think one of the greatest things that I've learned out of this work, Judah, is the fact that free will is everything. You can help a person, you can be by their side, you can walk that walk with them, and you know that as a leader as well and pastor. But at the end of the day, you can't do it for that person. And that is a huge thing if you're a parent, because you're going to ask about parenting. It's a huge thing if you're a leader in some way where you're guiding people, because you're giving all this great advice and all the support, and then terrible things happen. And there's an immediate thing, well, what did I do wrong? And that kind of thing. We've got to always self-check. But free will overrides everything. We've got to get ourselves in a position where we know how to get all this data and self-regulate so that we make good choices, because that's really what defines our life at the end, or the choice of it.
And you are such a resource in helping people like me and my wife and my kids making good choices every single day. If you are watching this right now and you want help making good choices every day, the dream would be this, right? Dr. Leaf is like, let's get Dr. Leaf to come to all of our homes and spend all day with us. But one of the things I'm really excited, because in a way this is possible because of technology. You have been diligently working to provide an application, an app that people can use that can begin to help them resource to make these decisions, understanding mental health and their thinking and their process to start making good decisions every day. Can you briefly tell us about your application, how people can access it, and it can help them every day?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. That's really was one of our goals, was how, I can reach a few thousand people in my practice, but I can reach millions now with this platform, which we do. So I've taken all the research. I developed this theory and research and all these things and applications to the the work I did. And I've taken all of that and simplified that. And we put that into an app. First, it was an online program. Then we put it into an app in 2018. And then we've updated that app. And so it's been around for a while, but we've obviously been updating. So since 2019, sorry. So we are the last 3 years, 2 years, it's been called the Neurocycle app. Neuro for brain and cycle. So Neurocycle. And it's basically it's a mental health technology platform, and it helps you to learn to manage your mind. Because our mind drives everything. Where the mind goes, the brain and body follow. So it's not a situation of our brain made me do it. So it's not your brain that does anything. Your brain can't do anything. If you're dead, your brain disintegrates. So there's a force that's keeping your brain and your body alive. The ability that we have to talk now, interconnect with each other, and our heart's beating and our blood is flowing, that is because we are alive. Our aliveness is our mind. And if we understand that our mind, how that mind works and manage that, then we can change our life. So the app takes all these principles of this is how the mind works. And this is how you can drive your mind in the right direction. Because every day, from the moment you wake up or the moment you go to sleep, you're experiencing life. All the unexpected, all the expected, all the challenges, the ups and downs, the joys, all of that is being processed by your mind, your aliveness, and it's being wired into your mind in an energy field, or in that it's all like cell phones. It's not anything weird. It's like how cell phones and computers work. That's how our mind basically works. Same kind of microelectronics as a computer. That's pretty much how the mind works. And then the mind puts this experience into the brain and the body, and it wires it in. So the process, how stuff gets into the brain, mind-brain-body connection, that's what the neurocycle is. So I've researched how does life become part of us and become our thoughts? Because what we do is we create thoughts with our mind. So experiences are translated into thoughts, and those thoughts are in our network, and those thoughts drive everything. So the thoughts that I'm having now are driving this conversation. A relationship with your wife, that's with your kids. These are all, every experience we have, and we have billions of these experiences, are all being processed by the mind into the mind-brain body network, and they drive us. So the neurocycle is how that process works. Now, not everything goes well. So we have bad stuff happen to us. So that process still happens because that's how we work. That is what happens. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly, it's going to go in your network. And the more you think about it, the stronger it grows, the more it drives you. So the way you show up is based on your thoughts. And thoughts come from how you've processed your experiences. So we don't always show up so well. Anxiety, depression, irritation, this, that, whatever, not coping, burnout, stressed over all the stuff. Okay, FOMO from technology, all these things. And just maybe not, worrying and whatever, getting really anxious, addictions, all these things are how our behaviors of how and patterns, behavioral patterns and emotional patterns of how we show up. So how you show up is your evidence of the thought, because how you show up is coming from the thought, because the thought drives you. So life is the experiences, becomes the thought drives you. Driving you means you're showing up in a certain way. So the way you're talking, what you're talking about, the way you're experiencing things. So based on that, my thinking was, okay, well, if that's the case, if I can look at how I show up in that relationship, in that conversation, in that work relationship, in whatever it may be, whatever's going on, in the multiple facets of our lives, if I can analyze and understand how I show up, I can then track the thought that it's attached to, which contains all the memories of the experience. And I can then go and deconstruct that and reconstruct that and change that and change how that particular thought then shows up in my life. I can change it. So I can't change what's happened to me. So we have traumas, we have things that happen, that wise into us. We think about them, they grow, they become strong, they drive us, we show up. Now I can't change what's happened, but I can change what it looks like inside of me by retracing my steps from how I show up right down to the level of where this comes from, and then I can deconstruct and reconstruct. All it sounds through mind. When I say I can, you can, it's with you in mind that you're doing this. And that's what the neurocycle is. I walk you through this 5-step process. There's this complex science that I've simplified into this 5-step process. You can't cheat on any of the steps. You can't change the order. But those 5 steps are how you rewire the network of your brain and your body in the right direction. It's how you find how you show up, retrace, redesign, reconstruct. So you can remember your past, but it no longer drives you. You change how your past plays out into your future. And that's powerful.
Well, it's so powerful. It's, you talk to people along your way, Dr. Leaf, and I know you've had this experience, and you run into people who specialize in things that are like, wow, that's really niche and that's really important for a lot of people, but not for everybody. And then every now and again, you come across people in your path where you're like, oh, we got to get everybody doing this. Like everyone has to do this. And when it comes to your work, it has that transcendent nature. We've got to get this message out to the world. This ventures into theology, which is my passion. Theology, your view of God, your view of yourself, your view of the world, and the power of your thoughts is so amazing. I want to ask some dumb questions because no
questions are dumb.
I knew you'd say that. I knew this is what makes you great. I knew you would say there's no dumb questions. Okay, this is good. But what would surprise us? Okay, curious people like me who know we need everything Dr. Leaf is saying. And this application, by the way, helps you through the 5-step program and the 5-step mind management process that Dr. Leaf has authored. And it is so significant and so important. So please download the app. Anybody who watches In Good Faith know we have a church home app. We're passionate about how applications can go with you in your everyday life. That is Dr. Leaf. She is incredible. Okay, Dr. Leaf. What would surprise us about spending a day with you? Like if we hung out with you, I want to know the ages of your kids, and then what would surprise us about spending a day with Dr. Leaf?
I love that. I love that. So just very quickly, if people are interested in downloading the app, it's available on iTunes and Google Play, and there's a web version. So it's all those versions, and we're always updating, and there's even help for parents to help kids, and we can talk more about those details and whatever. So in a day with me, I never stop talking about this stuff. It's applied. All my family work with me. I live this. I don't go through. I use the neurocycle concept to start my day, because the way you start your day is going to determine how you sleep at night. Sleep starts in the morning. It also sets the tone for the day. So I'm always spend the first 10 to 15 minutes, 5 steps, 2 minutes a step. So I'm always in a cycle. And a neurocycle lasts 63 days, and then you just keep repeating. You keep doing it. You keep doing them. So it takes 63 days to form a habit. It doesn't take 21. That's what most people think. So if you want to change something in your life, you're going to have to do it daily for at least 10 to 15 minutes for at least 63 days. And in that process, you're going to gain insight and recognize, oh my goodness, this thing I'm working on, this thought is linked to other thoughts and linked to other thoughts and linked to other thoughts. So if you do start your day like that, and I'm getting to answer your question, That's what you would do. If you started your day with me, I'd make you do a neurocycle. I'd literally sit with you and say, let's do our neurocycle.
This has changed your life, personal.
Totally. I mean, I can't live without it. It is, if I'm in a meeting, and listen, we're a family. We run, our core team is family. We have a big team, but our core team is family. It's very easy to get irritated with your family. You don't have to be as polite with your family. You can get away with more. And sometimes, this is where the neurocycle is great because you can self-regulate yourself. So not only is it good to resolve a trauma or fix a bad habit or even build a new good habit, because this is how basically the neurocycle helps you break down and build. It helps you use your mind. It helps you direct the neuroplasticity of your mind, brain, body network. And your mind drives everything. Remember that your mind is whispered in your soul. Okay. And we can talk deeper about that now because of the theology aspect, but your mind is it. It's whispered in your soul. So if that's not being managed properly, it goes the wrong way. So in terms of the messy mind, messy brain, messy body. So just remind me, Judo, after this question that we talk about sort of deeper stuff, the spiritual side and, that kind of thing, because it's very interesting to see where this is actually coming from. So yeah, in a typical day, so I would use the 5 steps if there's an argument or if I'm in a meeting and I've suddenly got to deal with something, I can feel myself getting irritated. I can use those same 5 steps to bring order back into my mind in a minute. I can be looking at you and run through a neurocycle. That's how adaptive it is. It is how you manage your mind. It's how you capture a thought and renew it. That's pretty much what it is. And we have to capture thoughts in the moment because we have stuff thrown at us all day long. And we have stuff going into us. We're absorbing 95% of our environment, and our spiritual level scans, our non-conscious mind scans and eliminates most of it. But there's a lot of stuff that we treat and it's stuck there, and those things we need to manage. So the neurocycle is how it's a system. It's not a technique. It's not a trick. It is pretty much the steps of renewing the mind. And you've got to renew our mind. If you think of the scripture, renewing is a continuous present. It's continuous present. If you remember your grammar from school. So it's an ongoing thing. So therefore, it is in a day, that's what would happen. So I'd start my morning, you go for a walk with me on the beach at 6:30 with me and my husband and my dogs. And then you would come back and have a great breakfast. We into all this, healthy organic eating on our balcony, which is looking at the sea. And then we would I would start the day with a neurocycle. And then we get into whatever work meetings and things that they are, but we're very deliberate about, trying to take lunches and that kind of thing. But sometimes you overwork, and that's also true, and that's not good, So yeah, I don't know what else to say. My kids all work for us. My husband works for he's our CEO. All my kids are in the C-suite, so they're all involved in that level. Except my son is contract. He's part-time because he's got some other stuff.
And what are the ages of your kids?
So they're all quite big now. They're all adults. So 33, 30, 27, and 26. And I have one grandchild, second one arriving next month. I'm 61. I'm old, although I feel very young.
This is not fair. We should be talking about your skin routine. That's what we should be talking about. And I'm not saying that the mind isn't important, but Dr. Leaf, your skin routine must be phenomenal. Okay, I got to ask a few other, they feel dumb, but, having someone like you on in a setting like this, I deal with so much of what I deal with in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills, Seattle, is social media and its effect on the brain, on decision making, its effect on what we perceive as our reality. Can you tell us what, I have so many questions I could ask specifically, but what role does social media play on the brain, and what are your biggest concerns and your biggest antidote?
Okay, so there's 2 parts to that answer. So the one part is, what does it do in your mind, and what does it do in your brain and body? And so what the general media emphasize is what it does in the brain and the body, as opposed to what it does in the mind. So think of your mind as the driving force. You can think of your brain and body as the physical, and think of your mind as this energy, microelectric and gravitational energy field all around and through you. So the fact that, just to diversify for a second, if you go and have an EKG or an EEG or a sonogram or any kind of medical, what they see is the energy of your mind in your body. Okay. So think of it like that. It's your mind is embodied. That's your spirit and soul are embodied. That's what drives your physical. That's why the physical, when the spirit moves out and the soul moves out, it disintegrates, because that's the aliveness is gone. So therefore, in our mind, we have to look at 2 different levels. well, 3 levels actually. The first level is your conscious mind, which is awake when you're awake. It's kind of like a toddler. It is experimenting. It's all over the place. It's learning. It's excited. And you need that. You need that energy to deal with the day-to-day moments. But your toddler, as we know, as both being parents, you need a parent. And the parent has supposedly got the wisdom to guide the toddler. So you've got your toddler mind and you've got your parent mind, conscious mind, and then your non-conscious mind. Your non-conscious mind is the word NON, not unconscious. Unconscious is when you're asleep. It's a brain state. So the unconscious has got to do with the brain. Conscious and non-conscious has got to do with the mind. And then in between those, you get the subconscious, which is like a little bridge, a doorway between the two, and it transfers. So the non-conscious is the biggest and hugest part of you. It works 24/7. It's brilliant. It's where all your brilliance is, uniqueness of being made in God's image. It's perfection. It's amazing. It's on your side. It's brilliant. And it's directly connected to the source, which is obviously, I like to say Godness, because I think sometimes when you say God, and it's just maybe a little quirk of mine, but when you say God, we make God small. So I talk about Godness in a very huge, neutral way to try and bring the bigness of it. So each of us as humans is connected to the source of life. So we have within us wisdom, and we have access to greater wisdom. But in order to access that wisdom, we need to get our toddler mind, that beautiful, experimental, learning, hungry, dynamic part of us that makes mistakes and falls and gets up. We need to get that to listen to the message of the non-conscious. It has to quieten down in order to be able to hear the message from the non-conscious. The non-conscious spiritual zone is so big, so fit, so smart, so brilliant that it puts things into the subconscious to slow things down. And then the subconscious is like this waiting room or this doorway, and then it sets things into the conscious mind at the rate that our conscious mind can process. But what we can consciously process is only a fraction, literally, of what we are as humans processing. We're brilliant. The depth of our brilliance is beyond. When we have those insights, it's coming from the depths of this brilliance connected to brilliance. Okay, so that's kind of just to lay the foundation. So when we talk about that, we want to get into self-regulated states. When we talk about capturing thoughts and renewing the mind, we want to do that in every instance. How did I respond to that email? How did I just talk to my partner? How did I just react to my kids? Did I just snap without even realizing? Am I irritated? How am I responding to that person on the road, or that person on the plane, or that person who upset me? And yeah, I'm talking about all these great things about how good I must be and so on. But I just snapped at that person. What we need is to self-regulate constantly. So a toddler mind conscious mind needs to be constantly in touch with what is the message from the subconscious mind coming from the non-conscious.
Well,
because the non-conscious is constantly saying, hey, listen, don't answer like that. Oh gosh, don't focus on that stuff. And it's getting that level of wisdom from Godness. So if we can train ourselves to totally tune in to the messages that are popping up, silent messages from the subconscious, they're coming from the non-conscious, we can then tap into the depths of our wisdom. And that's also what the neuropsychology tool teaches you to self-regulate. That's what mind management is. It's self-regulating. How am I showing up in this moment? And what should I be doing? What is the wisdom? We've got it in us, buried within us. Social media, long foundation, social media. Okay, so social media is amazing. Technology is phenomenal. AI is fantastic. I'm excited about all of them, as we all are. We use them all the time. Microelectronics, that all these things, computers, social media, AI, cell phones run on, it forms a third of the world's economy. This is, and that same microelectronics and gravitational fields and energy, quantum energy that makes social media work on our phones, and just the concept of social media and the internet and all that whole concept is kind of the same way that our mind works. It's the same kind of physics that we can apply to both, which is interesting. So your mind is on the same sort of wavelength as microelectronics that run those things. Okay, so our main foundation. So if that's the case, we've got our toddler version and we've got our parent version. So if I'm now, then you've got your brain, and your brain is just responding to your mind. Your mind needs your brain. As the mind hits the brain, magic happens, networks grow, neuroplasticity happens, your brain changes, your body changes. Everything we're saying, hearing, and discussing now is going from your mind into your brain and your body, and your whole brain and body are changing in this moment. At 400 billion actions per second, you are growing everything I'm saying into your brain and the body, as are your viewers and listeners. Okay? And so we redirect that. Now, if our mind is clouded, that's clouded, whatever. Okay. So now I choose whatever I think now, next principle, with all that in mind, whatever I think about the most is growing. Yes, if I'm looking at going on social media and I'm scrolling through someone's Instagram, if I can look at that and say, oh, wow, that's interesting. 1 minute. Okay, I'm in this first minute, as I'm looking at that, I'm feeling anxiety. I'm feeling fear of missing out, FOMO. I'm feeling myself getting kind of depressed. If I know how to recognize what I'm feeling and my reactions to what I'm reading, I will stop. But if I don't, the brain just does what the mind feeds it. So if I choose with my mind to look and scroll on social media, that's what I'm putting into my brain. The brain and body are wiring that in. And I carry on looking, it's wiring it in. I carry on looking, it's wiring it in. If I haven't put any controls in place, within 63 days, which is 9 weeks, which sounds like a lot, but it's not, it goes fast. I have wired in a network that's driving me. If there's been no controls in mind, if I let my toddler go crazy, what's going to happen? There's nothing wrong with what a toddler's doing to learn. But if that toddler's not guided, what's going to happen? And this is what's happening with social media. The concept's brilliant. It's phenomenal. It's given us access to knowledge, education. There's a million reasons why it's brilliant. But if it's not managed, the brain is a hungry organ for stimulation. It doesn't know how to discern. It's not a thinking thing. It doesn't discern between good and bad. It only does what's put in. So if you now put in the bad stuff and you start like the whole trend that happened I think it was last year in the beginning of the year with young girls of as young as 8 and doing the whole body image thing and getting anorexia and dying and terrible things, the suicide things. I mean, there's a lot of this stuff. If your child, without you knowing, with you knowing, whatever, is constantly watching that without monitoring, that's what's wiring in. So the brain is just grabbing that because that's what's being put in to the brain. And now our brain is wired for love. Our body's wired for love. Our mind's wired for love. So therefore, if I put in something about you all look ugly if you look like this, or that person's got more than me and therefore I'm bitter and twisted, or I wish I had that, or that person's hurt me, I can't stand them. If I keep on hanging around that, reading, these conspiracy theories and constantly over it, and all I'm doing is toddler mind, putting it into the brain. And because it's damaging information, because it's disruptive, your non-conscious mind is saying, don't do this. And there will be signals coming, but you can train yourself to forget, to shove those down. And then what happens is, because the brain's wired for love, it gets wired in, but it's disrupted. So instead of a beautiful network forming, it forms a twisted network. And that twisted network upsets the whole immune system. We get inflammation. And over time, the vulnerability of your brain and body increases, and we get all kinds of vulnerability to lifestyle diseases. And so we can reverse that to a certain extent, depending on how far down the line, because our bodies are pretty, they just do wear out. And they can only take so much beating, but you can to a certain extent. So social media unmanaged is a problem. Managed is not a problem. And I know it's a long answer. Without that foundation, people, you're just going to hear me say that I don't want to say the same thing that everyone else says. It's bad. Keep the phone away and go to sleep with your phone. That's not actually what we should be telling our kids or ourselves. What we should be.
I so appreciate that. Whatever you think about grows, you said, and that is such a profound statement. And that holds true scientifically, psychologically, theologically, for sure. Whatever you think about most grows. And I think of the ancient scripture and how it says, even some of the early followers of Jesus said, I fix my mind on Jesus. The great apostle Paul, one of the great minds in human history, said, I've determined to know nothing except Jesus Christ and him crucified. And of course, that's really colorful, ornate language, but it's amplifying what you're saying, Dr. Leaf, in terms of, hey, I'm going to focus on the sacrifice and love of Jesus. And by nature, Paul speaks of this growth and development as he becomes more like Jesus. And that is such a passion of mine. Like, whatever you think about the most, it's growing as you're thinking about it. And I see those appetites ebb and flow in my own life and soul as I'm feeding myself. It's so funny, though, as human beings, Dr. Leaf, how we're like, how did I get here? This is so weird. And I love you because you're like the ultimate detective that's like, guys, I follow the trail. It's not weird. Like, if you take this all in, it's going to affect you potentially adversely if you're focusing and consuming things that you don't want to grow in your life. Is that what you're saying in ways?
Exactly. So we don't want to suppress anything, because if you suppress it, it's there anyway. What we need to do is get everything out in the light. Wow. We want to deconstruct and reconstruct. And it's totally correct. Whatever you think about the most is growing. So that's what you're focusing on only. Your brain just gets distorted because your brain just does what your mind tells it to do. Your brain is not your mind. This is really key. Your listeners get nothing else. Your brain is not your mind. Your mind is the boss. Your brain is just doing the bidding of the mind. It's a filter. It's a literal filter and storer of information. And it only does what you tell it to do. So if you just feed it that social media, you feed it those stories, you feed it that negative stuff, or you choose to, we all do a combination of these things, obviously. But as you said, if you focus your mind on love, the core essence of humanity is love. And that is the frequency, that is the dominant frequency in quantum physics, in classical physics. It's the dominant frequency in microelectronics. I mean, it's the thing that makes things work, is this very complex frequency that actually makes things work. I know it sounds complex, but just get the point that when things are working, things are on that right level, and that level is a very spiritual, scientific thing. They're two sides of the same coin, and you can't separate science and spirituality. Science is just how the spiritual stuff works.
So good.
To focus on love, then, and if you're going to self-regulate through love, which is what pretty much the neurocycle teaches you to do, you're then going to recognize, oh my gosh, I just snapped at my husband because I did. I was in 2 meetings. And he's trying to get my attention for the next meeting because I had gone from one meeting to the next, and he had to ask me something for the third meeting. And I got irritated and I snapped at him. And I'm sure we've all done this, but I didn't need to. But because I am trying to operate in the self-regulated neurocycle or in self-regulation love mode, I immediately recognized, that made me feel like this. That reacted. I was so quick to be able to say, sorry, I caught it. In the past, it would have gone on longer. That's a simple example. But, Judah, there's people that hurt us. I mean, I can tell you 100 people, I'm sure you can tell me 100 people that have done something, and what they did was justifiably awful. Absolutely awful. And it doesn't justify what we're doing, and it affected you, and it's wired in, and it's maybe caused you trauma. But the fact is that they come in from brokenness. We're not going to see what they did to you. You have every right to work on the impact of what they did, but you also have the right to rewire, to work on how you function. If you just focus on, look what they did to me, you'll become bitter and twisted. That's what's going to grow. That's not setting your eyes on love. Love says, okay, what they did was wrong. Wow. I don't understand what they did. I don't excuse it either. But I recognize that there's a whole set of context that I don't understand, and perceptions and things, and
beautiful
all review in their life that made that happen. Yes, I recognize and honor that and separate that out, but I do have the right to work on the impact on my own life. That is operating on love, in love, versus getting bitter and twisted and fighting like we see in politics, where it's just one revenge thing after another, one aggressive thing. That's not love. And 10 seconds of getting irritated with someone changes your whole immune system. Within 10 seconds of just thinking in an angry thought about someone,
wow,
already lowered your IgA, which is one of the immune factors that you need lots of, and it drops that value. You don't want that value drop. You can rebuild it again. But your body, I've shown in my research, even your telomeres, which are the ends of chromosomes, and chromosomes you all know in the DNA. I'm sure everyone knows that. So chromosomes are those little X's. They look like an X, and you've got pairs inside your DNA, inside your nucleus of your cells. And where my fingernails are, those are called telomeres. And as we're talking now, you are making 800,000 to 1,000 cells to 1 million cells every second. And those cells are dependent on the chromosomes, specifically the telomeres. Your ability to make cells is based on your mind. So your mind supplies this energy switch that switches on this ability that we have to make cells. So we're constantly making cells. The quality of those cells is determined by our mind. Our mind influences the telomeres, my fingernails. And what we've shown is that when you are in states of extreme bitterness, unforgiveness, anger, frustration, or whatever, you shorten your telomeres. And when you shorten your telomeres, they get weaker, which means the cells that you make will be weaker, which over time weakens your body. But you can reverse that. In 9 weeks, I have shown in my research with my team that in 9 weeks of self-regulating through this process, this 5-step process I've been telling you about, and into that you can build scripture, you can build techniques, you can build, once you understand the system, you can put whatever you like into it, just put it in the right place, do the 5 steps, and you can actually drive this situation to change. Previous research on telomeres have shown, sorry, you're going to ask a question. I'll quickly tell you this and I'll keep quiet. Sorry,
yeah,
you can see
I love it. I love it.
I am about this stuff. Previous research on telomeres has shown that it takes 5 years for, if a telomere has shortened, it'll take 5 years for it to basically lengthen. And that's generally through diet and exercise. So I showed, okay, let's keep the diet and exercise out of this. Let's just work on mind management. Let's capture thoughts and renew the mind. Let's work on these thoughts. 9 weeks, those telomeres lengthen significantly. So we've even had the Nobel Prize winning laureates that have worked in teams reaching out to us and saying, okay, I need to see your research. And we did it with a small group. We're repeating that. The point is that it's proper science that we've done. I've got research studies on my site and everything that people are sciencing want to see. The point that excites me is that we affect our physiology, mind-brain-body connection, spirit, soul, body. We affect our physiology in both directions. The mind is full of power, and that's why I started off with free will. How we use our free will influences the telomeres, it influences our cortisol, influences all these things. There's so many, sorry, I get hyper about this, so please ask your questions. If I spoke too fast or you...
No, Dr. Leaf, people have to watch this episode because, and I know you said this before, but you're saying it again here, and it's such like a light bulb moment. I've always known in my line of work where there is forgiveness flowing freely. I'll leave it at that. It shows up on the countenance and the skin and the face and the body and the posture. And you have just linked. Now we know why Dr. Leaf has such great skin. We have unearthed it here today, ladies and gentlemen. But it's true. Like it's funny, Dr. Leaf, in Hollywood, when you see kind of people who have been caught doing awful things to other humans and now are in prison, and you watch the deterioration of their body just under the weight of shame and guilt and these things not growing anymore. You can see the body deteriorating. And I don't mean that this is the only motivator, but we live in such a world that's so caught up with our appearances. And what I love what you're saying is like, hey guys, newsflash, we can prove scientifically that if you'll live in a state of forgiveness and let love lead, it will affect your skin, it'll affect your posture, your body. And no wonder, Dr. Leaf, you look glowy and you look happy and you look fulfilled. And one of my favorite things about you, which I know about you, is that you do not, you preach only what you've been practicing for a really, really long time. And it shows up in your life. By the way, I don't know if you guys caught that. Dr. Leaf works with her family. Do you know how hard it is to work with your family? Like, this must work, right? This has to work. I realize what time it is. I have kept you long enough, but there's this little exercise that I do, Dr. Leaf, that I'm going to ask you to do with me. And it's probably at your wavelength and your level. This might be insulting, but we call it rock, paper, scissors. And here's what inquiring mind wants to know. What is your rock? What is your paper? And what is your scissors? What do I mean? Your rock is what is the surest thing in your life that you really hold to? Paper is what are you in deep deliberation over right now in your life and journey? And then scissors is what are you determined to cut out of your life? People want to know, Dr. Lee, rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, I love that. Okay, what is my absolute rock is for people to understand the power of the mind. It is...
Wow.
If I can get people to get the fact that is the power, that's the boss, and that drives everything, we would have a happier world. Because if people recognize that and recognize the impact that we're doing to ourselves, every time you get mad about someone or try and justify, you're actually hurting yourself more than you're hurting them. And also your actions with your mind, your thoughts create. And what you're creating yourself, you also affect others. We all come from one source. We are all interconnected. And that's whole depth of that interconnection, which is the paper, is understanding the unconscious, NON, conscious. That's been part of my research for the last 30 years. That is something that I'm really coming to grips with, trying to understand the non-conscious, the spiritual, the resurrected life, the life beyond not just, this is not it. This is the schoolroom. This
Come on.
physical is the schoolroom. And the other
Wow.
element that is paper that I'm understanding is this thing of free will, because I've worked with a lot of people in my life that have had family members in addiction or something like that, and have ended up in a really bad way. And they've done everything right that they could have done. And the questions of what did I do wrong? And that the self-blame, I want to free those people and help them to understand, especially when it comes to addiction, because addiction is destructive. When people get caught up in addiction, it's like the social media, but it's not, addiction, that's a form of social media where if you just get into that toddler mind, eventually your brain gets so damaged that your brain starts driving the feedback loop and it blocks your ability to tune into a spiritual level. And I'm trying to work on how can we break that cycle? How can we find the point at which we can get that person to make the right choice? Because the hardest people to make the right choice are people that are stuck in addictions. And addiction is not a disease. Addiction is a set of behaviors that have become so dominant to deal with pain. And unfortunately, because substances are involved, the physical nature of the brain and body change, and that feedback loop keeps people stuck in the toddler mind, and they battle to access wisdom, and that's why they continue to make bad decisions. So that's part of the paper thing, is to try and understand that, and how can we get people to the point of seeing that and then being able to shift out of that. And then what I want to cut out of my life is I don't want to get bitter, angry, irritated, whatever. I want to shorten the time. So, and I'm working it, I tell you, and someone will upset me, I'm getting it quick. I still react, but instead of taking 10 minutes or a day or a week to respond, respond very, very quickly. So that's what I'm really working on, is I don't want that I don't want to waste time. I want to say, help me so that I can do the rock and the paper stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to cut out that lingering kind of bitterness, jealousy, strife, envy, hurt. I want to cut that out quicker so that I can allow my body to heal and restore, but also live that life of love that you so evidently live. And I just honestly, if nothing else, and in good faith, can we thank you for your heroic efforts. This has been no short journey. This has been no small journey. This has been no small lift. What you and your family have dedicated your life to is adding so much value to human beings everywhere. I will not forget, and I hope that everyone watching won't forget, that what you think about most grows, whether you like it or not. What you think about most grows, and the quicker we can forgive and release people and let love lead, the more optimal the life that we'll live. And it's so rare, Dr. Lee, if you know this, to run into someone who is so comprehensively committed to their own cause. And this is not a fad for you. This is not a trend for you. This is not an idea for you. This is not a one-off book for you. This is a direction in which you have decided to live your life, your marriage, your children, and we see it and we applaud it and we love it and we need you and we thank you. And so if you haven't been thanked enough lately, I certainly hope that you have. I'm sure you have. But on behalf of everyone who is drafting off of you, learning and growing and developing because of your incredible leadership and your team and your family, truly, 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 truly thank you. We're so excited. And to have you on In Good Faith is a wild dream come true.
Wow, I don't even know what to say to that. There was just such beautiful words, and I'm so honored, and really that means a lot. And something that was, thank you. I'm very honored, very humbled, and very
honored. We love you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much. Thank you for a wonderful interview. I loved it.
Dr. Lee, thank you for you could do interviews all day nonstop, and the fact that you chose to be here with us today means so much. If I can ever do anything, me and my family, for you, please let us know. If you ever need any help, if you're in LA and you want to hang out or go somewhere, whatever, my resources are available to you. We would love to do anything to add value to you.
That's so kind, and vice versa. If I can do anything for you as well, if you're ever hanging out in Miami, where we are based at the moment, we'd love to connect as well. I'm actually going to be in LA in February. I'm doing a big conference with Jim Quickly, so maybe we can hang out and meet for a coffee or something. So we can meet.
Please, I would love that. I'll have my team give your team the information and everything, and anything. I'm great at spontaneity too, so please let us know. But we love you, and your time is so valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We love you too. And thank you. This has been so much fun. I've loved it. Thank you. A great interview. And thank you for letting me just go on. I get so when
I
I get
love
the
it.
right questions, I just explode with this stuff. So thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you. Okay. Get some rest. Have a great day, and we'll talk
Thank
soon.
you so much. Bye bye, Joe.
Okay,
Thanks so
bye.
much.
All right.
Bye. Bye, Judah.